watching Oregon's News at 10 on Oregon's Fox.
Crowds sound off after a record-breaking win tonight. Kate Brown has become the first woman governor to win a re-election in state history. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this special edition of Oregon's News at 10. I'm Kristen Goodwillie.
And I'm David Walker. We're glad you've joined us. Kate Brown carrying more than 50% of the votes that have been counted so far, and Republican challenger Knute Buehler with about 43% of the votes as those that have been tallied have come in. But Oregon has not had a Republican governor since Vic Atiyeh in the early 1980s, and that streak will continue. Buehler giving his concession speech earlier tonight.
I'm sad and disappointed. It's been a long road. It's been a good road, a road that has allowed Patty and I to meet so many of you who started out as strangers and now are family and close friends. And no matter what happens with the results of this election, no one can take that from us.
Knute Buehler thanked his supporters and his family for sticking with him through what has been a hotly contested race. He says Oregon has big issues and that he thinks the state is on a path to peril, talking about health care, homelessness, education, and PERS. We've been following a few of the hot button measures in Lane County throughout the state as well.
Starting with the Eugene 4J school bond measure that's passing tonight. Taking a look at the numbers, 66% say yes and 34% saying no. This measure would provide $319 million in funding for new technology and facilities. That includes 3 new campuses, including a rebuild of North Eugene High School. Funds would also be used to improve the curriculum and buses. Now, the repeal of Oregon's sanctuary state status has been a hot button issue as well. We're tracking the latest results. Measure 105 would allow law enforcement to apprehend someone based solely on their immigration status. Based off of these numbers, it looks like Oregon will keep its sanctuary status. That's 63% are saying they want to keep it, and 37% voted to repeal the sanctuary status.
And Oregonians voting on a restrictive abortion law, turning down Measure 106 that prohibits money from being spent on abortions with the exception of those medically necessary. You can see the numbers there, 64% to 36%. That's a measure that had been talked a lot about all through this campaign.
Measure 103, known as the grocery tax ban, would prohibit taxes and fees based on transactions for groceries. 42% saying they want to amend the Constitution, nearly 58% saying no to that. And taking a look at some of the big races across the country, CBS News is officially projecting that Republicans will keep control of the Senate.
And of course, that's been a big issue in this campaign, the midterms, if you will. That includes the seat held by Tennessee Republican Bob Corker. That seat is staying red. Marsha Blackburn winning that race over the Democrat, former Governor Bill Bredesen. Corker, who was at times a major critic of the president, is retiring after this session. Bredesen endorsed by pop star Taylor Swift. But President Trump stumped for Blackburn in the days leading up to the election.
Mitt Romney has been elected to the Senate by Utah voters. The former governor of Massachusetts and Republican presidential candidate beat out Democrat Jenny Wilson. Romney will replace retiring Senator Orrin Hatch. Some prominent Senate Democrats will be on Capitol Hill for another 6 years. Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota, Kristen Gillibrand of New York, and Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts are projected to keep their seats. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who battled Hillary Clinton for the Democratic nomination for president in 2016, is also returning to Washington for a 3rd term. And in District 4, it's round 5 between Peter DeFazio and Art Robinson. Right now, DeFazio looks like he'll keep that seat. He currently has about 58% of the tallied votes compared to about 42% for Robinson.
And we take just a quick break.
Meteorologist Travis Knutson is in the Weather Center with a look at that forecast. Travis?
Well, temperatures cooling down a little bit. Today was a little cooler than we were at yesterday, and that's a trend we'll see for the next few days across the state. But here's a look at the high temperatures across the state of Oregon. Right around 60 degrees for most of us, 59 in the North Bend Coos Bay area, 61 in Eugene, Corvallis seeing a temperature of 59. A look at the headlines for what's to come. The mornings for the next few days, nice and cold. However, the afternoon should be pleasant. Fog in the morning, sun in the afternoon, and as far as rain is concerned, well, none this week. Now here's a look at those temperatures tonight. Getting close to freezing for a few spots. Burns, poor Burns, 16 degrees for the overnight low. Highs tomorrow in the 50s, and our downward trend stays with us. I'll tell you which night coming up is the coldest in my forecast minutes away.
Thanks, Travis. For Lane County Commissioner, position 5, it looks like Heather Buck is winning the seat with a 56% vote.
Yeah, a race against Gary Williams. Tom Adams met up with Heather Buck at Valley River Inn tonight. She's cautiously optimistic as those numbers continue to come in tonight. Tom, what else did you hear from Heather Buck about this election and what's ahead?
Well, hi, David and Kristen. We are live at the Valley River Inn, and this has been the nerve center all evening for the Lane County Democratic Party, and they've had a lot to cheer about. And one of the local races, as you mentioned, is the Lane County Commissioner race, East Lane Commissioner race, involving Heather Buck and Gary Williams. And Buck is in the lead, the early lead in the first printout from the county, at 56% of the early vote. Of course, Lane County Commissioner, a nonpartisan race. We caught up with Heather Buck just a few minutes ago to get her reaction to her early lead in the East Lane Commissioner race. Here's what she said.
Yes, it's looking good. I'm cautiously optimistic, and we're all pretty excited, enthusiastic, and we're just going to see how it goes, but it's going our way so far.
Any surprised by this?
Not really. I mean, we've been working really hard for over a year now.
Well, we also talked to 4th District Congressman Peter DeFazio tonight, and of course he's on his way to re-election this evening. He is predicting that Democrats will pick up 30 seats nationwide when all is said and done this evening, with the Democrats retaking control of the U.S. House. And that will make DeFazio the chairman of the powerful Transportation and Infrastructure Committee once he takes office again in this coming January. Reporting live at the Valley River Inn, I'm Tom Adams. Kristen, David, back to you.
Thanks, Tom. It looks like the River Road Park and Recreation District measure is going to pass with 75% of that vote. It's a 5-year renewal of tax to maintain operations. And Lane County Measure 2290, which would adopt score automatic runoff voting or star voting. It looks like it's a close race. 53 say no, 47% are saying yes.
And one of those state measures that allows cities and counties to use bonds to pay for privately owned affordable housing. And that is passing as far as the numbers that we have thus far, 56 to 44%. In Springfield, a general obligation bond to fix streets there in Springfield, and voters saying yes in terms of the first election results. We are expecting more results to come in soon, as we have here from the early results, the yes votes with the lead 54 to 46%.
And next on Oregon's News at 10, we continue our election coverage in the Douglas County and Coos County area.
And before we go, let's take a look at some of the numbers for the state Senate and House of Representative numbers. Voters in Douglas and Coos County were busy deciding the fate of a lot of measures and races for this election.
That's right. The race for Douglas County Commissioners was crowded, and it's boiled down to a close race at the top. The numbers show Tom Kress with the lead over Alex Scarlatos in the race for position 1, Jeremy Slater and Delissa McConnell in 3rd and 4th. And looking at Douglas County, the race for the county commissioner is within a close margin.
Yeah, pretty close race there, and that's one with a couple of people, as we just showed you right there at the top. While Kress has that slim lead, Alex Scarlato says he's not giving up on this race. And KVAL's Gabby Yorenda joins us tonight.
So I'm here with Tom Kress, who at Tuesday evening is leading the Douglas County Commissioner race with 38% of the votes. So Tom, how does it feel seeing those numbers come in?
It feels really good. I think it's very early yet and might be a long night, but at this point I like the momentum we've got.
Definitely. So what do you plan on doing as your first thing as County Commissioner?
Oh, I really want to reach out and bridge the gap and try to bring all sides together and just for the good of the county.
Very ambitious. Well, thank you so much for your time, Tom. I'm here with Alex Scarlatos, who on Tuesday evening is actually behind in the Douglas County Commissioner race. Alec, how does it feel to see those numbers come in?
I mean, obviously I wish were ahead by like 10%, but 2% is definitely very close, and it looks like it's going to shape up to be a long night, but I'm just grateful of everybody coming out. We have an excellent crowd here and we're having lots of fun, so we'll see how the rest of the night goes.
Do you have any message for voters, that are looking by at the TV, seeing those results come in?
Again, I'm just grateful for all the support that we've had. We've had the best people on our side, and I'm just grateful for everything that's happened, and we'll see how the rest of the night goes.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time. Reporting from Douglas County, I'm Gabby Yorenda.
Thanks, Gabby. And we're looking at another measure out of Douglas County, 10165. It preserves the right to bear arms. 79% voting no, 21% yes in that. We did reach out to Sheriff John Hanlon, who declined to do an interview with us.
And a couple of races in Coos County over on the coast for Coos County Commissioner. The incumbent John Sweet with a 58 to 42% lead over Katie Iman in those numbers first released from the Coos County Elections Office. And that race for Coos County Sheriff, Craig Zanny, already has served in that job for a couple of terms, and one of his deputies, Kennard, running against him, and a big lead for Craig Zanny with those early numbers of 69 to 31%.
And don't go anywhere. We have more news after the break.
And before we go, let's take a look at some of those other measures for you from the election today.
Lane County Commissioners took the first step today in creating a curfew on the Butterfly Lot in downtown Eugene. Back in October, the Butterfly Lot became home to homeless people following a federal court ruling. That ruling kept cities from evicting street people for camping out if they have nowhere else to sleep. Well, last week, Lane County created a homeless camp off Highway 99 and helped transport homeless people living downtown to the new lot. County officials say it was during that process that they realized the Butterfly Lot and Public Service Building are the only two county buildings without a curfew. Now, this morning, they held the first reading of a possible new ordinance to implement a curfew, closing that area from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m.
This is intended to make this consistent so that it is easier for EPD to do enforcement actions, because they don't have to wonder if they're on one side of the street or the other. It's written so that it covers the Butterfly Lot and the county is contiguous to it, and the same thing for the PSB.
Certainly the city and the county continue to be committed to work together in partnership to end homelessness in our community. While these are temporary, shorter-term, immediate solutions that we felt certainly a need to address concerns that were identified, health and safety concerns that were identified at the Butterfly Lot.
The city and county expanded services with St. Vincent de Paul for the new camp on Highway 99.
Well, a Eugene man is taking outdoor trash quite literally into his own hands. Derek Hatcher is posting requests voluntarily on Facebook for locations that need some cleanup around the city. Hatcher concentrates on areas inhabited by the homeless. He says he's found everything from empty syringes to human feces. In just 1 month, he says, he's picked up more than 1,000 pounds of garbage in 9 different locations. Well, the streets of Eugene are starting to get covered with leaves. The The city is beginning its leaf collection program on November 10th. Collection days are based on where you live in the city. Eugene's surface maintenance supervisor tells us it's important to know what day they'll be in your area. The city is asking people not to put leaves in the street until the weekend before their pickup day, and to be sure the street is as clear as possible on that day. And you can see the pickup schedule on the city's website. Well, stay with us tonight. We'll be right back.
30 Minutes of Sports is coming up next. Have a good night.
This midterm election. KVAL's Kristen Goodwillie is live in the newsroom now at the KVAL Live Desk following those votes on those measures all night. Kristen, how does it look?
David, the repeal of Oregon's sanctuary state status has been a hot button issue. Right now, we're tracking the latest results. Measure 105 would allow law enforcement to apprehend someone based solely on their immigration status. Now, based off of these numbers, it looks like Oregon will keep its sanctuary status. 37% voting to repeal and 63% want to keep it. We can also take a look at this map that breaks down how each county voted. I'll go backwards here. And so it looks like Lane and Coos counties are on board with the majority of the state, whereas Douglas County, a majority of them voted to repeal that measure 105 with 55%. Now, the voters shooting down measure 106, that's right here, and that would prohibit public funding for abortion. That's 64 to 35%. Now, the return showing voters approving measure 102 with 56% of the vote. That allows cities and counties to use bonds to pay for privately owned affordable housing. Going down to the measure known as the grocery tax ban being nixed by voters, measure 103 would have prohibited taxes and fees on groceries. Back to you, David.
All right, thanks, Kristen. In Eugene, the 4J school.
Welcome back. We continue our coverage with the Douglas County Commissioner, position 1.
Well, Tom Kress maintaining about a 2 percentage point lead. It's been swinging there 2 to 3%, 3 right now over Alex Scarlatos. Kress with about 38% of the vote. A Second Amendment preservation measure in Douglas County. That's one a lot of people have been talking about. A big percentage of voters saying yes to the measure, giving the Douglas County Sheriff the power to decide whether a federal, state, or local gun regulation is unconstitutional.
A public safety measure in North Bend appears likely to fail tonight. 55% of voters saying no thus far. The city was looking to fund a $1.5 million gap for the North Bend Police and Fire Departments. And it appears John Sweet will retain his seat on the Coos County Commission, position 2. Sweet defeating Katie Iman in that race.
And on the South Coast, Craig Zanny ready to get back to work as the Coos County Sheriff. Zanny running against one of his deputies, Michael Kennard. Zanny's been on the job for 8 years. He tells us his plans in his next term are to increase jail bed space with a boost in staff and funding.
A bond measure that would give more funding to the Siuslaw School District is failing tonight. More than 70% of voters are giving the measure a thumbs down. Money from the bond would have been used to construct and upgrade facilities and improve school safety.
Dealing with some temperatures today that'll be dropping off as we move forward. Here's a look outside where we will see some chilly overnight temperatures. I'll tell you about it next.
Well, the election today included the most diverse group of candidates in U.S. history.
And history has already been made in several big races, which captured the country's attention. Kenneth Craig has the latest.
Still ahead here on KVAL News, a grim discovery as workers search through areas once occupied by ISIS.
Plus, a legal battle over scouting. Why the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts are going to court. That's after the break.
The United Nations says they found more than 200 mass graves in Iraq, an area formerly controlled by ISIS. The UN says it's a reminder that although the terror group has been all but vanquished, they left a gruesome legacy. The UN says the graves contain thousands of victims, the total number unknown right now. The United Nations Children's Fund says intense fighting in Yemen's city of Hodeida is putting children in the city's hospital at imminent risk of death. In a statement released Tuesday, UNICEF said the lives of 59 children are at risk of death, including 25 in the intensive care unit at a Thara hospital in Hodeida. The city and the neighboring governorates account for 40% of the 400,000 kids in the country suffering from severe acute malnutrition, according to UNICEF.
The body of the Utah mayor who died in Afghanistan over the weekend arrived at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware this morning. Brent Taylor was killed during an apparent insider attack in Kabul. The 39-year-old leaves behind his wife and 7 children. The Girl Scouts of the United States of America filed a trademark infringement lawsuit against the Boy Scouts of America for dropping the word boy from its flagship program. Now, the name change is in an effort to attract girls. The complaint claims the Boy Scouts of America do not have the right to use terms like scouts or scouting by themselves. Adding the simpler term could cause confusion and erode the Girl Scouts of America trademark. The Boy Scouts first announced the change in February and are currently reviewing the lawsuit. Coming up next, a look at your late night eye-opener, plus some thrilling news for fans of the King of Pop.
Now, your late night eye-opener before Colbert.
The Associated Press declaring Governor Kate Brown the winner of the governor's race, she carrying more than 50% of votes that have been counted so far. Republican challenger Newt Buehler with about 43% of the vote. The state has not had a Republican governor since the early 80s when Vic Atiyeh was elected. Based on these numbers, it looks like Oregon will keep its sanctuary status. Measure 105, 37% voting to repeal the sanctuary status. 63% want to leave it as is. Measure 105 would have allowed law enforcement to apprehend someone based solely on their immigration status. The Eugene Forget school bond measure that is passing tonight, the numbers released so far show it winning with 65% of the vote, now up to 66% of the vote. That measure providing $319 million for funding new technology and facilities, including 3 new campuses. That would also include a rebuilt North Eugene High School.
Coming up tomorrow morning on KVAL News, the ballots aren't the only things being counted this election. Nationwide, this may have been the most expensive midterms ever. We'll break down where the money came and went at 5 and 6 in the morning.
And we end the day with some non-political news. Michael Jackson's Thriller usually makes a comeback in October for Halloween, but this year it actually became a chart topper again. Downloads and streams of the song put it back on the Billboard Hot 100 list at number 31, the highest mark since the song was released back in 1984.
Well, you can't not, you know?
No, Thriller.
You have to listen to it.
Lives on.
You have to enjoy that one. Now it's All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey. That one's on the list
you
now.
do love that one.
It's a good song. Looking at the 7-day forecast here, some foggy starts the next couple of days, but the bigger deal, probably those overnight lows. Thursday morning and Friday morning, seeing temperatures right around that freezing mark. So things will be cooling off, and the foggy beginnings will end in sunshine. So we'll see the blue skies. It'll just be cold start to the day.
Just a bit chilly. Well, we want to thank you for joining us here for KVAL News at 11 o'clock. And of course, you can go to kval.com and get all the election results. We update those as we get fresh numbers from the elections offices all around our area. And of course, we'll see you back here tomorrow night on KVAL News at 11.